everyone. Thanks for joining me. So, a couple months ago, I was at a conference, and you have a glass of wine in your hand and you're looking to make small talk. Well, I run into someone that I knew, but hadn't ever really had a long discussion with. And this person blew me away. You know what it's like when you're in the middle of a great conversation and you're thinking, wow, this person is impressive. This is that person. Today, my guest is Marne Fauser, and she's the president and CEO of the United Way of Central Illinois. And I want her to tell her story along with what she's learned about leadership so that we can learn from her leadership style. We're all going to get some great pointers today on what it takes to be a great nonprofit leader. So let's get ready for some real talk. Hey there.
Hello, how are you?
Great to see you.
Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. All right. So I kind of already told our listeners that, I recently just saw you at a conference. And, I know who you are, of course, but we haven't really had much time for long discussion. And I just loved the discussion we had because you're just full of positive energy. And I was like, we need to have you on because I want you to talk about leadership. But before we get into all of that, I want to know, tell me your story. Okay, you're the CEO and president of the United Way of Central Illinois. How did you get there?
Yeah, that's a big question, right? And my story is like many others. It's a winding path. And
Yeah.
so, 25 years ago when I was like a young one, just right out of college, I was in coaching. I was a college basketball player. And so I kind of always thought that's where I'm going to be, college athletics and higher education. And so that's kind of where my journey started.
Now, wait, before we even get further, I got to ask you about your college basketball experience. So what is it like today to see where women's basketball is where it is today from when you were in it? Because, it's super popular. There's, great personalities. It's changed completely.
It has. We've had, you had the Pat Summits of my era, like this amazing coach with amazing players throughout her storied career. And then, but it still wasn't necessarily catching on, especially at the WNBA level. But you see it now, and it really is the Caitlin Clark effect. You just have this great player that's bringing some energy, and it's exciting, right? You're seeing somebody shoot from the logos on a court consistently. You're like, what is happening? And that's fun. And I think, it's exciting, but I need to see other women athletes, basketball players specifically, embrace that instead of push against that, embrace that because she is bringing notoriety to the organization.
Yeah. So I just think it's amazing. So, okay. Go back to your story. Sorry. I just had to find out from you what you thought because.
No. I have lots of thoughts and love talking basketball and sports in general. Both my kids play now in college. So we are pretty dedicated to the sport for sure.
Yeah.
But when I started in higher education, I had a boss that really instilled in me the importance of building relationships. And it was through recruiting and with the families. And when it came down to it, the reason you're building that relationship to see if there's shared values, are they going to be a good fit for your program?
Mm-hmm.
It's not just about winning and losing, or can they help you win or not, but are they going to go to class? Are they, you know what I mean? Are they going to be a good teammate? So it was really building those relationships to say, is this a good fit for us? Do we have the same values, the same goals? And sometimes you get it right and sometimes you don't. But I really feel like that is the foundation of where I started and how it relates to fundraising. Because when you're working with donors, right, you're getting to know them. You want to understand if there's mission alignment. And if there's not, you don't want to force that and say, oh, well, we can do this when it's outside your mission as an organization, if that's not what the donor's interested in. So little did I know that piece of my growth started on a basketball court.
Yeah.
And then I had somebody, he was a chair of the exercise science department, said, you know what, you really should get into advancement. And I'm like, what is advancement? What does that mean?
Yeah.
And that was, that was the language. And I was, I had no idea what he was talking about, and then maybe he saw something that I didn't, because here we are today, and I really think that those were the pieces that helped build kind of my fundraising, path.
Yeah. But now you're, like, leading the whole thing. It's not just you gotta do all of it. You're
All the
overseeing the
things.
whole thing. So how
Mhm.
did you get from the fundraising to now, like, overseeing the whole nonprofit organization?
Well, I think one thing that helped guide me was being kind of unapologetically authentic. I know I have a strong personality. I share my opinions. I want to try new things, and um, I want to take risks. And so I think the opportunity to do something that I have never done before was not something that I ever shied away from, or something that I was scared of. Like I was more exhilarated by it. Like, absolutely, like, let's conquer this.
Yeah.
And so I think the opportunity to go from being an assistant coach to being a head coach. Now I was able to get into a leadership role and have some experience there. And then shifting out of coaching into the nonprofit world, I kind of moved into community engagement. So kind of entry level of like, okay, how are we going to build relationships? And then from
Mhm.
there, it was moving into fundraising and just different fundraising roles, whether it was in plain giving or major gifts. And so it was always the piece of, I like ideas, I like trying new things, and so,
Yeah.
I think there's some natural, like, I wanna kinda be the one in charge and the leader, because I'm okay with taking risks, I'm okay with failing, and
Mhm.
so I think when your leader is like, "Hey, let's try it," and if it fails, there's no fear of, "Am I gonna lose my job? Am I gonna get yelled at?" Because I'm like, "Hey, let's try it. If it doesn't work, it's okay. Let's figure out why, like, let's pivot," and, I think when you have that mentality, it suits a person in a leadership role really well, because I'm like, let's go for it.
How did you get that? How did you get that part? Why are you this way? I mean, I'm
Kinda
like, I
genetics
wish every
switched in.
nonprofit leader was like this,
Yeah.
but how did you get this?
I honestly, I don't know if I have a great answer to that one. I just really think, maybe when I was younger, I was always told I couldn't do it.
Okay.
Couldn't do something, right? I was, 5'5" and 10 years old and a baby giraffe, right? Just, maybe a 50 pound, like, it was ridiculous. I
Yeah.
was just a baby giraffe out there, and everybody was like, "Oh, you're not tall enough to do this." And by the time I was in high school, I was 5'10", but I was always, like, too small. I couldn't play in college because I was too short. And, I think maybe everybody kinda saying, "Well, you can't do this and you can't do that," and I was like, "Why not?" Like, "Why can't I play basketball at this age?" Or, why I had "Why did the girls have to be the cheerleader and the boys get to play basketball?" And I don't know if it was some of the drive was being told you can't do something, and I'm like, "Why not? Let's try it. If it doesn't work, okay," and I'm sure that had a piece of it, of my development over the years, of just go for it.
Yeah.
Who's to say you can't do it?
So, do you think some of this is just you were born this way in a sense?
Yeah, when there's all the books that you can read that says, "Here's who you are, this is your color," or whatever,
Yeah.
but I truly believe the one that resonated with me was the one that says ideation and discernment, because I'm like, "Oh, that is me. I love these ideas, and then I wanna sit and think about them, and make sure it makes sense. I
Yeah.
have a Post-it note on my office cabinet, and it says, "Make it make sense." There is
Yeah.
nothing profound about that, but if we're doing something, I wanna make sure it makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell me about some of the mistakes you made along the way, or that you saw leaders make that you were saying, "I want to avoid that."
Mhm. I think they're early on, as I was trying to, like, navigate, finding those leadership opportunities that were not always easy, but, I just kept kind of working hard, keep my, head down, and work hard, and do the things. And you realize that there are some people that they're watching, they know
Mhm.
what you're doing, even if they don't see you. I had a boss that said, "You always left breadcrumbs. I always knew you were doing things. I didn't have to see you every day to know." But a couple areas that I feel like I saw were some of the lack of authenticity, that you just didn't feel comfortable, right? That you saw people
Mhm.
maybe trying to, if you talk about it in fundraising, tell a donor something, and you're like, that just doesn't feel real, right? And
Mhm.
I'm like, just be authentic, be who you are.
Yeah.
And so there was that was one piece of what I saw, and I was like, "I would never do that."
Yeah.
I am gonna be as transparent as I can, and if there is not an alignment or we have to return a gift because we didn't do what we said we were gonna do or whatever it is, I'm gonna honor that. And so, I'm gonna be authentic, I'm gonna be real, and then I feel like that builds trust.
Yeah.
Another one which I always struggled in is, my first day as an MGO, if you want me to tell this quick story.
Yeah.
My first day, we're sitting in a room, I know no one in the room, out of training, and all of a sudden a woman older than me, more experienced, has a lot more background in fundraising, and I think I probably was like, "What am I doing here?" And it was, "Well, owner meetings, you gotta wear the short skirt, you gotta sit this way, and your legs gotta be crossed," and I was like, "I'm not a poker player at all, Jeff. There's not 1 ounce of me." So my face, like, said everything, right? Like, I was just like, "What are we doing?"
Wow.
You know?
Yeah. That wow.
And I was like, "Okay, is this a," it's like, "Are we being punked right now? Is this a joke?" And I'm like,
Yeah.
There are cameras here that they just wanna see my reaction, but, I was like, "No, those are the rooms I walked out of as a young woman, um, trying to do what I felt was the right way with my hard work, with what I brought to the table, not my clothing or not my legs." And so,
Yeah.
I was like, I'm not sitting in this room. I'm not doing it this way." And, I feel very strongly when women and young girls are trying to build their resumes that they stay strong to who they are, and
Yeah.
they are hired for jobs they're to do. So, um, yeah, so it was just a learning process,
Yeah.
right? To go, "Yeah, that's not me, and I can take a different path."
Yeah. Wow, that's a big one right there. Um, okay, so you've mentioned, um, having being authentic, being real. You've mentioned taking risks so far. What are some other qualities that you feel make great leaders that you've embodied yourself?
I think hard work. I mean, that willingness to learn.
Yeah.
I don't have it all figured out today, but I have a willingness to learn, and to listen and, see what others are doing. And again, if it makes sense for what we're doing, valuing my team. I don't need to be the smartest person in the room. I want the experts in those areas, whether it's in marketing or it's in fundraising or it's in finance, program. Like, I want them to be the experts in the room. And boy, I think one of the things I talk about with my team is tell me what you intend to do. Sometimes people come to you, as the boss or that leader and go, "Well, here's what I want. What do you think?" You know what I mean? It's like, "What should I do?" And I'm like, "No, no, don't tell me what you intend to do, because then I know you've thought about it. You've thought about what could go wrong, what can go right, where there could be their barriers. But tell me what you intend to do, and then let's work through it instead of asking my permission to lead in your area." I hired you to lead in that area. So,
Yeah.
um, I love flipping the script that way, and it
Mhm.
can also be scary. I could be setting my team up for failure, right? That, they could leave here and go take, the next step in their career and walk into their boss's office and go, "Hey, here's what I intend to do." And that boss might go, "Oh, yeah?
Mhm.
Well, I don't think it works that way." But I really want them to develop into leaders and be the best they can be in the role that they're in. And if that is their sweet spot, man, like, let's just be great at that.
Yeah. So your style is really about helping develop people. That's what I'm hearing, is that you want them to develop into other leaders and to either be leaders within where they are now or in the future somewhere else. I think that's amazingly admirable for a leader, nonprofit leader, because a lot of times some leaders are so focused on, we got to present the big vision and you got to do all of that. And then the people are kind of like secondary, you know? Um, but what I'm hearing from you is people first. People are so important.
Yes. Yeah. And boy, that development piece, and I think that ties back into the coaching. I've always said, since I was a little girl, I wanted to coach. And I think coaching takes on different paths, and it doesn't mean you have to have a basketball in your hand or whatever sport you play, but
Yeah.
it is giving them a voice at the table, sitting in a staff meeting is they all have a voice to give their thoughts and opinions. At the end of the day, I tell them, like, I have to make a decision at the end of the day, and I may not go in the direction that you've shared, but be okay with that. I still need you to speak and
Yeah.
give your opinion and your thoughts. And you have to do it knowing that I have a strong personality, but it's okay to say, I think I would do it this way. I very well might go, yeah, no, we're not doing that. But I think you open up those lines of communication when you
Mhm.
do that, and then really getting the team to work together on, like, I'll say peer-to-peer accountability, and
Mhm.
so it's not always like, "Hey," coming to me saying, "Hey, like, this ball was dropped or that. Did you talk to your colleague?" "Well, I wanna" No, talk to them. Like, if you guys can't resolve it, absolutely bring me in, but I think it develops a couple things. It develops their soft skills, right? And how to almost get comfortable being uncomfortable. Nobody likes to have those conversations if somebody didn't get a report to you in time and you needed it for a donor meeting or you needed it for the board. But I think when you are working as a team, you have the opportunity to say like, "Hey, this is how that impacted me." And so it's not the boss coming to you. And so I emphasize that, I stress that this teamwork, this collaboration, we're in this together. I'm not better than anybody. My staff will laugh because they will see me doing things. They're like, "Why are you doing that?" And I'm like, If it has to get done, it has to get done."
Mhm.
But I think just building that team and even developing, like our internal plan, what we're going to do, it is not me handing them
Yeah.
a plan. We sit around that table and say, who are we? What needs to be done right now where we're at with our organization? And they have input in it. So there's buy in from every single person on my team. There is buy in. They've had a voice in it. And then that means it's their responsibility too, right?
Yeah.
It's not just mine.
Yeah. I love that. Um, you know, m over the years, a lot of nonprofit leaders, CEOs, executive directors I've seen, they really have an aversion to fundraising. What are some of those mistakes or advice or actually, what advice would you give to the young potential leaders out there that really do want to lead an organization? What would you say to them now around the discipline around fundraising and how much they should spend in fundraising and its importance to their work?
Well, to kind of your first point when you're talking about some people have an aversion to it, and it's because it's difficult or they feel it's difficult or maybe they're dishonoring somebody if they're asking them for money, right?
Yeah.
And I think you have to flip that script and go, they have a passion and want to help. That's why they're here. They understand you're a nonprofit. They're expecting you to ask. So as long as you've done your work and you have that mission alignment, you understand the values of your organization you're running, you understand the values of what the donor wants to see happen.
Yeah.
Well, you're creating the moment to help them. Like you become almost that gift advisor. You're helping them meet their philanthropic goals.
Yeah.
And so I think if you think of it that way, it makes more sense instead of like, well, I feel uncomfortable asking you for 10,000, so that I just have to do it, right? You're like, that's not inspiring. Like
Yeah.
that's not passionate.
Yeah.
Like, no, like, hey, I know you are so involved in this and you love this. Like, flip the script. You're helping them. You're connecting that donor to a way they can help their passions.
Yes.
So for young leaders, I think that it's having that voice and advocating for the importance of fundraising and explaining why to if they have leadership that they're not interested in it. I've sat in those rooms and have had to advocate and have had to fight for major gifts. And it's hard, especially when you have the data and your argument is built on data and they're just like, nope, and you're like, well, why? And they're like, well, because I don't like it. And I'm like, well, where's the data behind that? And it's like, ah, okay. So I think always advocating for your role in the work. And then you're advocating for the donor too, because
Yeah.
without that, they don't have a way to make that connection.
Yeah. Totally agree. There's so many leaders out there though that it's just like they are so out to lunch with. and they have such an aversion to fundraising. Like some of the times, half of our job is just getting the leader on board with the concept that donors actually want to talk to you, the
Mhm.
leader, you
Yeah.
know, and they need to hear from you. They want to hear your vision, and you got to figure out how to get over this aversion to talking with people about
Mhm.
giving money. And it does it if you can get them to realize that you're actually doing the donor a disfavor by not asking them to be engaged with you, that somehow has a trigger for a lot of
Mhm.
leaders. Yeah.
And having the person, whether that's your MGO or your director of development, make it easy for your leader in the sense that, like, hey, you don't have to make the ask. Like, I can make that ask. Like, you tell the story, you tell your passionate, like, why are you leading this
Mhm.
organization? What are we trying to do here? Um And I think role playing is good too.
Mhm.
You know, no one likes it. My staff, when I did it, they're like, "Oh my gosh, role playing." Or when I had to do it with, at a previous role with my leadership, it was, like, "Hey, we're gonna role play this." And, you throw them some curveballs because it it's coaching, right? It's
Yeah.
practice. Like, you're not just gonna go play the game. You've
Yeah.
practiced
Yeah.
multiple days on how to make a shot or how to run this play or how to
Yeah.
guard. The same thing you need to practice, and that's what that role playing does. It prepares you, it gets you more comfortable, and it's carving the time for it too, right? Like, as a leader, you have to carve the time out
Yeah.
to go, "Okay, let's go through this. Let's run.
Yeah.
Who are those donors? Who do you need me to meet?"
Yeah.
Because when you are dealing with all the things of an organization and you feel like there's 100 spinning plates, you need that one person to say, "Hey, here are the 10 people,
Yeah.
and I need you to call them, or we're going to have these 4 lunches, or I need you to do these cards, and here's what it is." Um, Allow someone on your team to take that responsibility and manage up and give that to you. And you go, this, you are now learning as a leader how to then engage that way.
Yes.
You don't
Manage
have to
up.
depend man.
That's great advice for young leaders. Let people manage up to you. Let them tell you, like you just said, that's perfect that you will allow someone to come in and say, Marnie, you've got to do these 10 things over this week.
Mhm.
Here's the 10 things.
Yep.
Here's the 4 donors. I need to do this. I mean, for you, that'd be awesome because you're right. As an executive director, you've got all these plates spinning. You're thinking of so many different things.
Mhm.
So to have someone that you can trust that tells you what you need to do, I think that's gold. Now, tell me throughout your career, I want you to get a little vulnerable and tell me some mistakes you've made that people listening in can learn from.
I would say in my younger days, I was extremely competitive,
Oh,
passionate. And, my first boss, he would laugh at me today because I would be like, "It is the principle of the matter," right? I would dig in. And sometimes I wanted to win because I was so competitive, and that had been my world.
yeah,
And sometimes it's not about if you won or not. It's about who, maybe the bigger of the who won, right? I had to really learn, to still be competitive, but, you know, maybe not, not be so fiery all the time. I still have a lot of that, so people will be like, "Well, she's still that way," and I'm like, "Well, if you saw me 20 years ago, you'd be like, 'Whoa.'"
yeah,
But I think it's really, just listening, making sure I was listening
yeah,
and hearing what people were saying. I think there's times where maybe was maybe too rigid, and those are things I've learned along the
yeah,
way of, like, nope, this is what we're gonna do, and this is gonna how we're gonna do it. And I had to, like, okay, now that you're in that leadership role, yes, you had this vision of what you wanted to do, but now you got to bring the others with you. Otherwise, you're going to be fighting this battle on your own, right? And so it's like, even if in my head I'm like, I don't know that this is going to work, I need to let them work through it. And letting, you're asking me about my mistakes, but I also go, let them fail.
yeah,
I do this with my own kids, raising them. It's like, let them fail. If they climb the tree and they fall, it's you know, hopefully it's nothing serious except, but if they break their arm, I always say, let them fail, let them fall, let them get back up. And so
yeah.
sometimes mistakes can be like, I thought I had all the answers, or I thought I had the right answer. This is what we did. And maybe I should have sat back and worked and maybe let somebody else come to those conclusions
Mhm.
too. But, really patience, age is, maybe I'm aging like a fine wine, right? Just like calming down and being a little bit more patient,
Uh-huh.
along the way.
Yeah. I love this whole idea of letting people fail or giving people the space to try new things, and if it fails, they're not in trouble. Because I think
Mhm.
there's so much fear, I mean, in the business world, but also in the nonprofit space, of taking risks or doing anything outside of the box because you're worried that, it's gonna a program will fail or it's going to cost too much money and, it might waste money. Um, so we just have this mentality of playing it safe. I love that you as a leader allow for space to let people fail. Cause I think failure is really important to learn from. Um,
Oh, yeah. I You are preaching to the choir on that one.
yeah,
Absolutely, like, I 100% align there. Is like, it's okay to fail.
yeah,
At the conference we were at, I said, "Raise your hand if you're okay to fail." Nobody raised their hand. I was like, "I'm raising my hand. I'm okay to fail because that means we're trying something different."
yeah,
And I think in the nonprofit world, and you'll know better than me, it's a scarcity mindset.
yes,
Almost like we don't have the resources to do that. We already know what it's gonna take to do this, and it's like, "But is that the best thing?" "Well, I don't know, but I know we can afford to do just this, and our budget's not gonna change," and, well, maybe don't do something else. Like, maybe
yeah,
let's evaluate some other things so we can really knock X out of the park or whatever it is that
right,
we're looking at. Eh, and I don't know. I just think it's okay to, I don't like to fail. I'm not like,
right. No one likes to fail.
living the dream failing, but it's like, it's okay to try new things. I mean, the joke with me is, I wear my heels, I'll be the first one to trip and fall, it's okay. People may laugh, I'll get back up, it's okay. And so, I just think it builds strength in your team when
Yeah.
you're saying, "It's okay." So if you say, "Hey, I wanna try a new way to connect this program, I wanna try a new way to recruit volunteers," like, "Okay, let's try it."
There used to be several years ago, there used to be like a gathering of fundraisers that came to the East Coast that was, I think it was in Baltimore area. And they, they would ask people to come and talk about their mistakes or failures for that past year and
Mhm,
then what they learned from it. When it first started, there was just like a handful of people that and then it started growing and growing to a point where it just became, like, so big that they had to, like, get new space and all of this, but the idea was that come and share and be vulnerable, share your stories of mistakes you made or where you think you failed so that we can all learn from this together.
mhm,
And it produced all kinds of great ideas from that. Maybe you need to, like, in your area, do this for other executive
mhm.
directors and
Yeah,
bring other executive directors together to say, "Okay, tell me your failures from the past year. What were the mistakes you made?" I think it would have a profound effect on those organizations that they go back and lead.
mhm.
Because I think that's where the learning really happens and the change really happens.
Yeah, and I mean, there's times where, I think capital campaigns can be one of these areas is like when you are planning something and all of a sudden this room is this donor makes that gift for this room and next thing you know, the plans changed and
Yeah,
that room doesn't exist. And, I've been through some of those situations and it's not necessarily like a mistake, but boy, it's uncomfortable, but there's so many moving parts and
yeah,
people might not be thinking about you as the fundraiser when they're making these,
yeah,
building plans. You're not
right.
you're not in the engineering meeting and
Yeah,
but there are mistakes that happen along the way. You may go to an event and the timing is off or your speaker doesn't show up and but you're trying everything you're supposed to do. It's okay, like pivot, just pivot, and go to the next thing. Sometimes people don't even realize those things were made. thank yous are a big one for me on the fundraising side is, like, get those things out to those donors, and if you
Yeah,
miss it, that is on me, organizationally, that is, like, 100%, um, like, I accept that, like, we made a mistake, I made a mistake that we didn't acknowledge that, so, um, and sometimes mistakes, are they really mistakes, or are they just learning opportunities? It's all in
yeah,
the framing of
yeah,
how you see.
yeah. Well, before we go, I wanna ask you this last question, and that is, I wanna know what is the best part of your job as a leader, and how do you create more space so you can do more of that in your day?
Mhm. So a couple things. I've learned that my genius is ideation and discernment. So like I know I need those moments that I can kind of sit and let my brain just think. And as a executive director in those leadership roles, sometimes you don't have that, right? Because we've talked
Yeah,
about those spinning plates, but I have to be able to find that time and there's no such thing as balance, work-life balance. It's integration. It's how am I going to integrate my
mhm.
personal life and my professional life and maybe my volunteerism or whatever it is together. I have to figure out how to integrate those. Because there's balance is not even a real thing except for maybe gymnasts. But um it it's finding the space, and I find my space at night, and it's late. It's usually, like, kind of at 9 to midnight, but that's kind of my time to let everything go and just, like, think. I also am huge in immersive events, just side note, my fundraisers do not run my events because I do not want them getting,
Good.
into the weeds there.
Yay.
They have a role there, and that is speaking with the donors or meeting, possibly new donors or volunteers or whatever that might be. But it is bringing people. This is the best part, and I have this later. Is bringing people into an experience. Like I want you to feel it. I want you to smell it. I want you to just experience it, and I don't ever want it to be the same thing twice.
Mhm.
Being able to be creative around our events, so you have like 200, 300 people leaving, going, "My gosh, like I'm like, literally, I was moved, and it wasn't by necessarily listening to someone, it was by experiencing it.
Yeah,
Um, and if I have a second, I'm gonna tell this quick story
yeah.
by what I mean by that, and this is like taking a risk because it was different, is that we, rented 3 hotel rooms, and we had a ballroom, and in the first room, it was cold, and it was disheveled, it was dirty, there were pill bottles, alcohol bottles, and we had a young woman on a computer screen telling her story, and she's talking about this moment in time, and we have a group of our donors in that room, and they can smell it and it's cold, they can feel it. So when they said that they didn't have heat and they were getting notes from school about her not showing up or whatever it is, they could look around the room and they were in that moment in her life. And then you went to the second room and you were in a jail. And she's talking about that moment when she's incarcerated and the only thing she had, and it was hot. Like you were cramped in there, it was uncomfortable. I wanted you to be uncomfortable.
Mhm.
It's very stark. Pictures of her kids were on the ceiling. That was the only thing, and they were truly the pictures she had on the ceiling when she was incarcerated. Like,
Mm.
we had fake ones. She said, "No, no," went home, got the real ones, put them on the
Wow.
ceiling.
Wow.
You walk into the 3rd room, and it smells like cinnamon, and it's a nice, clean room, right? This is the first time she was in stable housing. First time she was able to make cinnamon rolls for her daughter. So she's telling the story and you're in it, right? It's comfortable. It's 72 degrees and it smells good and it's clean. And then you go into the ballroom and she's our speaker saying, I am full time employed. I have reliable transportation. I own my home. My kids are in private school. Like,
Wow.
whoa. For me, it was like you experienced it,
That
like
is
you felt
powerful.
that.
Yeah.
And so, like, I love those opportunities of educating and teaching through moments, not just listening to me talk at a podium. Like, go through it, do something. Um, but it's something that we had never done before. We tried it. There's mistakes we made with some timing on getting people through the rooms, but it was okay
Yeah.
because at the end, it was powerful.
Yeah.
People forgot the line that they kind of if I did it again, there are things I would do different, but man, the impact that that has made in donors saying, that is what touched me. That is what made the connection. I see how it works. So the the best part of my job is honestly working with my team. Working with our board of directors. That's
Mhm.
your big team, and bringing people in to experience something they may not otherwise experience.
Yeah, that is so awesome. Wow, you've really shared some amazing things with us, and I really appreciate it. If I really urge every listener, they need to go on LinkedIn and connect with you because you're a prolific poster on LinkedIn, but I think it will give everyone a great idea of your leadership style and how you do your work in the community and, at your organization and how you think as a leader. So go look. We'll put a link. I'll put a link in the show notes. Hopefully you'll get a bunch of people
Yeah, I'm gonna get a
requesting
bunch
this.
of followers. I'm like, "Who is
But
this?"
no, you really need to connect with Marnie because if you're looking to know how does a leader act, this is the person. So I really appreciate you spending time with us today and sharing how you do leadership. I mean, that's amazing. So
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I
yeah,
love the conversation, as
yeah.
always.
Thank you so much. And until next time, we'll see you soon. Thank you.